you said available spectrum versus usable spectrum. What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? Good question. Good question. And it's been, and when I heard first was diving into TV Whitespace, it's a unique, again, spectrum. So for the most part, there's a database that tracks, it's by a company called RADWIN, and they track available TV Whitespace channels at different locations, different geographies, throughout the United States. And being able to track and say, hey, this is where my latitude and longitude is, this is where I want to mount my TV Whitespace equipment, and it can come back and it can tell you, hey, here's your channels that look to be available. The problem is looking to be available is very different than usability. And what I mean by that is, as we know, TV Whitespace is pretty much TV spectrum, which is broadcasters, and they're blasting out their signal, and they're able to, blast out their signal at literally about 1 million times the power that, we would be able to on our base stations or even our competitors. So the problem that you run into is that these broadcasters are sending out a signal so hot that it can go 50, even 75 or 100 miles. And we've seen this in our beta testing where we're not too close to a city, but with these broadcasters, blasting out, and they're allowed to do it at, such a loud, dB level that it can propagate out such a long ways that it doesn't really match up with the RAD database. So when you get out there with your spectrum analysis and you start looking at what really is usable in the spectrum versus what's available based on the database, you can see some pretty different things. And that's part of our process, which is looking at the database, which, we can take a look at based on latitude, longitude, based on the elevation of my base station, what channels should be available. And though that can let us know very quickly, hey, that's a viable spot, or maybe it's not. So we can see very quickly how many channels might be available for us to use in the TV Whitespace spectrum. And then, when the rubber meets the road, as we always say, when you get out there and look at the spectrum, then you get a true idea of the usable spectrum, the usable channels that are available.
Got it. So you would, I'm a big fan of saying measure thrice, cut once on this. This solution, it does require strong engineering, strong expertise, and the right tools. Would you say that's a fair statement?
I think that's 100% statement. And I think going back to your question, a few minutes ago about where some of the competitors have, and I think they failed the spectrum, and they've kind of put a black mark on the spectrum, is because those tools they didn't have available. And whether it's the tools available or just the knowledge of where TV Whitespace really lends its challenges is, where I think we're going to be a differentiator, where we're going to shine, because we have those tools. We've got a planning tool, we have access to the database, we put it all together, and we have a very good understanding of, the TV Whitespace, the spectrum, the channels, and how we can deploy most effectively in there.